Hello and welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching America 360 on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Amid the ongoing peace talks of ending the Russia-Ukraine war, US President Donald Trump expresses hope, says good chance of reaching a Russia-Ukraine peace deal. As Ukrainian delegation wrapped up Ukraine peace talks in the United States, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that talks were productive, but more work is to be done on the truce proposal. US President Donald Trump confirms reports of telephonic conversation with Venezuelan leader Maduro. However, Trump did not reveal further details. This call comes amid escalating tension between both the countries. Venezuelan leader accuses the United States of wanting to take over its oil resources. Venezuela has also asked OPEC Plus to show solidarity in the face of what it considers an escalation that could endanger Venezuela oil production. Kremlin has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to meet Trump envoy Steve Witkoff on Tuesday. This comes as US-backed Ukraine peace deal gains momentum. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has dismissed US President Donald Trump's threat to exclude Pretoria from next year's G20 summit, reaffirming South Africa's status as a founding member of the group. Hong Kong police arrest 13 people in connection with the last week's deadly fire that killed at least 151 in a residential complex. Early investigations revealed that substandard material contributed to the fire. Tulip Siddique, the British Labour MP for Hampstead and Highgate, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison by a Bangladeshi court over corruption charges related to her aunt, the country's ousted former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Let's move now to the top focus story here on America 360 on NewsX World of yours. Tension between the United States and Venezuela have reached new high as President Donald Trump commented on a controversial US military operation in the Caribbean. Reports suggest that US forces conducted a second strike in September, targeting survivors of an initial attack on a boat, killing at least 2 people. Despite claims from anonymous sources that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the follow-up strike, Trump denied the accusations, calling the reports as fake news. The US has ramped up its military presence in the region, citing anti-drug operations. But Venezuela insists that the true goal is regime change. Meanwhile, President Maduro has called on OPEC for help, accusing the US of attempting to seize Venezuela's vast oil reserves. With mounting pressure from Washington, including a terrorist designation for the cartel of the Suns, the Venezuelan government is preparing for a possible military confrontation. At least 83 people have been killed in US airstrikes targeting alleged drug trafficking vessels, drawing criticism from human rights groups who have labeled the strikes as extrajudicial killings. And joining us now is John Rassamando, who's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst, joins us live from Washington. Thank you, John, for joining us here at NewsX World and giving us your precious time. John, do you think Venezuela is equipped if US was to move forward in its aggression and wage a war?
Well, let's put it this way. I think that they'd better be looking at insurgency contingencies at the Pentagon in case they decide to go in. I think that we learned in Iraq that taking down a regime is the easy part. But from all intents and purposes, Maduro has been readying militias to take action in the effect the United States takes down his regime. So this could be a quagmire of a conflict if we go in.
All right. John, even as the Washington says that the aim of the military deployment that began earlier in September is to curb drug trafficking and smuggling, Caracas is maintaining that the real goal is regime change. What's your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion on that is that, you look at the forces that are being amassed off the coast of Venezuela and in the Caribbean. The only question I would ask is, do you really need that for countering drug smuggling? We've been countering drug smuggling for decades. I mean, going back to the Reagan administration. So I'll just leave that as a question for your audience.
And with the taking over of its airspace, do you think U.S. is now preparing for invasion of Venezuela?
Well, I think that there's a lot of information pointing in that direction. However, considering that I do not have media sources on the matter, I'll decline comment.
All right. Well, thank you for speaking to us here at NewsX World. John, I'd let you go with that. And viewers, a dozen of demonstrators were arrested in Lower Manhattan for attempting to block federal agents conducting immigration enforcement activities. Protesters chanting ICE out of New York logged arms and blocked federal vehicles, some throwing planters at cars. Federal officers have used pepper spray to disperse the crowd. The protest is a part of a broader wave of demonstrations against the Trump administration's immigration policies. Authorities have said agitators obstructed federal law enforcement officers after social media posts revealed their location. Homeland Security officials have condemned the publicizing of ICE locations, citing increased assaults on officers. Tension between federal agents and local authorities escalated, with New York Police Department Commissioner criticizing federal actions for putting public safety at risk. The New York Immigration Coalition has further condemned the law enforcement response and demanded the release of those arrested. I now request John to join us back into this conversation here. John, of course, it's a tough crackdown that Trump is imposing on immigration. It's what we're calling a reverse migration. What do you think is going to happen to those who are already there, particularly the Afghanis who returned after the Taliban takeover?
Well, I hope that the administration takes a nuanced approach to working with the Afghan generals who are living here in the U.S. in exile, because they know they know how to find the bad individuals. They're trained by the CIA, and so they have the experience to go in and find the individuals who are a threat. I know a lot of Afghan military people, including some of the zero units that people have been talking about, who are people of honor and people of integrity, and who are not a threat to our country. So I would hope that they would, use the generals as a resource.
Now, multiple people are arrested as protesters are blocking federal agents. Where do you think this is going to go on from here? And crucially here also to note is that Trump himself is a third-generation immigrant.
Well, let's put it this way. This issue is not about immigration. We're a nation of immigrants, but this is an issue of people who broke and entered into our country, who didn't follow our laws, who came here during the Biden administration and potentially before without authorization. Would you, allow a person who entered your home without your permission to stay in your home? This is, really what the issue is.
All right, do stay on with us, John, as we move on to another crucial development that's coming in. Viewers, we're also now learning that U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff has held another round of talks with Ukrainian negotiator Rustem Umerov, the country's Security Council secretary. Senior sources tell news agencies that a meeting took place Monday in Florida as Washington pushes a U.S.-led plan aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. The sources say questions remain around the proposal and that President Zelensky expects to meet Umerov in Ireland on Tuesday. He's awaiting a full report on Witkoff's discussions as diplomatic efforts intensify. The new round of talks comes amid heavy fighting and growing pressure on Kyiv to outline its position in ongoing peace efforts. Steve Witkoff will now be meeting Putin tomorrow in Moscow, viewers, and has held another round of talks with the Ukrainian negotiator Rustem Umerov. And senior sources are telling agencies that meeting was held today in Florida as Washington is pushing for a plan aimed to end the war. The new round of talks comes amid heavy fighting and growing pressure on Kyiv. Statements are also coming in from Russia that if Kyiv does not accept its demand, it might as well be prepared for a full-scale invasion. Putin had issued a warning to that regard just a few days ago. Zelensky, meanwhile, is awaiting a full report on Witkoff's discussions as diplomatic efforts are now intensifying. Meanwhile, Russia has captured 701 square kilometers, which is the second largest territorial advance of the war after November of 2024, by not taking into account about the initial months of invasions when the front lines were rather mobile. Putin has repeated his demands last week, suggesting Ukraine to give up territory. Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, who's president of IDC Russia and director of WHT International Board, now joins us live from Moscow. Thank you, Dr. Sergei, for joining us here on NewsX World and taking time out for us. What are your expectations from the peace talks tomorrow when Witkoff will be speaking to Putin in Moscow?
Thank you so much for the invitation. Good evening, first of all. I would like to tell, of course, as a bigger historical requirement of this peacemaking dialogue, because we have two brother civilizations, two countries like Russia and Ukraine. Even we should know that before it was one country and one motherland and one civilization. Both of our countries is Orthodox countries, and even we was baptized in Kiev. Kiev before was a capital of all Russian civilization. And I would like to tell and remind to you that new administration of United States, Donald Trump, they announced, even during his election, Donald Trump announced that he wants to complete this peace deal together with the partnership of Vladimir Putin. And he is very much dedicated. We understand very clear this conflict, which was created and inspired by previous administration of Joe Biden. And right now we're very close to the final stage where we'll really receive real peace, which will be based on the common value, traditional and history between our countries. And we can expect also some change of the regime of Zelensky, because even right now, Mr. Zelensky, he is not president of Ukraine. He was not re-elected. And we can see a lot of scandals right now in his cabinet. And we can see bigger fighting inside Ukraine the conflict of elite, but come to the nation, to the will of nation. All Ukrainian nations, they completely understand and realize they was cheated by Mr. Zelensky, because during his election he promised that he will bring peace. During his election he promised that it will be a real dialogue with Russia, but he bring his nation to the war, to the conflict, to destruction. And right now, very soon, believe me, we can expect that he will be removed, and we'll see the new real leader of Ukraine who will put his signature on this peace deal.
But Dr. Dvoryanov, there are allegations that Russia is making rather maximalist demands. Many people are in fact saying the war would come to an end the moment Putin decides to do so. And as far as the charges on Ukraine and Zelensky's aides are concerned, many would say it's an internal matter of Ukraine, and that the said aides have already tendered their resignations. What do you have to say to those charges that Russia is making many maximalist demands, and for it, it's like my way or highway?
See, regarding the peace dialogue, we should be on the maximalist position, because it's reality is peace from one side and war from another side. Nothing in between. Nothing in between at all. We are peacemakers. Our nation, historically, we can see that always Russia was in the deep conflict with eastern part of the world and the western part of the world, but during last 1,000 years, we are fighting for our territory, for our national identity and civilization identity. That is in our blood, that in our genes, that is in our spirit. And come to the point that we should definitely, because we already was cheated by European politicians. It was a Minsk agreement, and European politicians, as you know, is a very strong historical fact. They cheat Russian Federation. Even previous Chancellor Angela Merkel, she very proudly, openly announced that yes, regarding the Minsk agreement, we just want to buy the time. Then we know that it will be not realized. We just buy the time that will initiate this conflict with Russia. Very openly they announce about their cheatings. That's why right now we should be maximalist position, because otherwise we'll be cheated again. It's not possible, because it's a like big challenger for all the world. And everybody knows that Russian nations is the most peaceful nation in the world. Because we defeat the Nazi, we save the world. Hitler was destroyed by most biggest contribution of Russian nation, 20 million lives. We should not forget about that. 20 million lives. That was the price of victory, of our victory.
All right. I request you, Dr. Dvoryanov, to stay on with us, and thank you for sharing your comments. Viewers, there's some more news now coming in. According to the data from the US-based Institute for the Study of War, the Russian army has made its biggest advance this year in November. However, in over a month, Russia has captured 701 square kilometers, which is the second largest territorial advance of the war after November 2024, by not taking into account about the initial months of invasions when the front lines were highly mobile. By the end of November, the Russian army controlled fully or partially, which is 19.3% of Ukrainian territory. Before Russia's invasion of February 2022 in Ukraine, Russia had 7% of Ukrainian land of Crimea and areas in the Donbas region in the east, which were under the control of Russia. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin has repeated his demands last week, suggesting Ukraine to give up territory, including land that Moscow does not occupy, for any deal to be possible. Since the start of 2025, Russia has captured nearly 5,400 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine as almost 2,000 square kilometers more than in the same period last year. However, in a month, Russia has captured 701 square kilometers, which is the largest so far advance after the November last year. All right, and joining us in this conversation is John Rossomando, President of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. John, we just spoke to Dr. Dvoryanov from Russia, and he has stated some very crucial points. Russia continues to advance, and it's captured almost 20% of Ukraine now, and that's the official number that we have. Russia is going to proceed further if a peace talk is not finalized, and its demands are nothing short of full invasion and for Zelensky to step down. Now talks are due tomorrow. How do you expect those to proceed?
Well, I don't expect anything to come out of the talks. I mean, the Russians want Ukraine to give up areas of Donbass that it has been unable to capture by means of military aggression. I think it's kind of ridiculous for the Russians to expect to give up or gain territory that they can't win in the battlefield. Also, Zelensky's place in the Ukrainian government, I don't see Zelensky stepping down as part of a peace deal anytime soon.
All right. To stay on with us, John, we have some breaking news now coming in. A federal appeals court has ruled on Monday to uphold a decision that disqualified Alina Habba, a former personal lawyer for President Trump, from serving as the acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit issued a unanimous decision siding against the Trump administration's attempt to use a novel legal mechanism to appoint unconfirmed lawyers into temporary U.S. attorney positions. The case emerged after 3 men facing criminal charges in New Jersey argued that Habba's appointment violated the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, leading them to seek the dismissal of their indictments. John, your comments on the breaking news.
Well, I just have to say that, it's kind of a shock to see the court come down the way that it did. However, the appointment of Ms. Habba to a special role as acting U.S. Attorney for New Jersey by Pam Bondi back in July apparently was done in a way that isn't in conformity with the law. I think that the administration needs to take a look at how she was appointed and avoid putting into technicalities that could cause their other appointees to be removed.
All right, John, thank you for speaking to us here. We now move on, viewers. Now, according to the Belarusian Foreign Ministry, Belarus has lodged a formal protest with Lithuania after a Lithuanian fixed-wing drone violated Belarusian airspace and crashed inside the city of Grodno on November 30. The ministry has said that it summoned Lithuania's chargé d'affaires, Erika Vilkanicus, to issue the protest, calling the incident a deliberate provocation. The Foreign Ministry condemned the overflight as a threat to national security and a flagrant violation of international law, including the Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation. It demanded full disclosures from Vilnius regarding the drone's purpose, operator, and launch circumstances, and called for a thorough investigation with those responsible held accountable. Minsk added that it reserves the right to take all necessary measures to safeguard its sovereignty and security, depending on how the situation develops. And that's a wrap on America 360. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates.